Hello, and welcome back to the Podcasting Problem Solver. I am your host, Leah Bryant, podcast growth strategist, coach, and the one here to help you pin down fresh ways to repurpose your episodes for lasting visibility. And today we're diving into one of the most underrated platforms for podcasters who want their content to keep working long after the publish day. And I am talking about Pinterest, friends. Now, before you go down a rabbit hole and picture vision boards and DIY wedding inspo, I want you to hear me out. Pinterest is a search engine, which means it's a goldmine for repurposing your podcast content in ways that drives listeners, leads, and long-term visibility. And I could not think of anyone better to unpack this with than Alex Jean, who helps coaches and service providers generate consistent leads outside of social media. But before we get started, let me officially introduce you to Alex. She's a Pinterest strategist with a data-driven yet down-to-earth approach. She makes Pinterest feel simple, sustainable, and actually fun. She is passionate about helping entrepreneurs build marketing systems that work long-term so they can spend less time chasing trends and more time serving their clients and community. Alex also does Pinterest for me, and the traffic from Pinterest over the last several months and all the things that are happening has been so exciting, and I cannot wait to dive into that more. But first, welcome, Alex. I'm so grateful you're here and really excited for this conversation.
Hi, Leah. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited as well.
Yes. All right. So let's start here first, because I feel like a lot of people think Pinterest is just for like recipes and home decor. So in your opinion, why is Pinterest such a powerful platform for podcasters and business owners in 2025 and beyond?
Were you on my Instagram today? Because I just had a post go live that said Pinterest is more than banana bread and weddings. So you hit the nail on the head. So yes, I think that is 100% what people think a lot of the times when they aren't familiar with it from a marketing standpoint. They think of it very as a consumer, very as DIY, very as, I need a chicken recipe for tonight. I need to paint my office. What are some colors? What's some inspo ideas? Whereas there's a whole other side of Pinterest, and it's a powerful marketing tool. Think of it like Google, but with pictures. It is directing people to answers. They have questions, and Pinterest is taking them to solutions and answers. And you want your content to be the answers and solutions so they become a part of your community. And it's a place that people go with intention. So they don't go to Pinterest to necessarily kill time, right? We've all been in the doctor's office, killing our time on Instagram, scrolling around, seeing some TikToks, things like that. People go on Pinterest with intent. They go there with a question, with an inquiry, with needing something. And that's why it's so powerful, is because you're getting your audience at a point where they want to take action. And so it's much easier to move the needle, as you were saying, when it comes to it being lead generating and getting more clients, getting more community, and building that world with these people because they're ready to jump in. And that's so much different than social media. And that's such a different level of intentionality for the audience and for the consumer. And so it's so different. It also, as you were saying earlier, it's sustainable. So one pin can go for years. It's not going to be a one and done in 24 hours. And that's also something people don't necessarily know about Pinterest, is what you do I'm Canadian, so I always say it snowballs. It's growing and growing and growing and building.
First of all, I love that you said that people go to Pinterest with intention. And it's so true, because I've never just gone on Pinterest just to be on Pinterest. I mean, that's what TikTok and Instagram are for, just like you said.
Yep.
But like when I go to Pinterest, it's for specific things, like a help with something, right? To find an answer to my question. And essentially, the content that you're putting on Pinterest is evergreen, right? Yep. That visibility is going to stay around. And that's what we want as not only podcasters, but also as business owners. Like an episode, like you take that episode and make a blog post, or you have a blog post, you don't have a podcast yet, right? Let's say we publish that blog post, and then months from now, it still has a chance to be discovered. And that aligns so much, friends, with my Seamless Podcast Framework. It's not just about the execution of the blog post or your episode. It's also about the attraction piece, that making sure that people can find it. So good. So I know that a lot of podcasters wonder, because I've had conversations like this before, is, well, I don't even know if my audience is on Pinterest. Like, what kind of niches or businesses tend to respond well on the platform? And how can podcasters maybe figure out if Pinterest is worth their time?
That's a great question. And one I am asked on 99% of my calls with folks who are curious about Pinterest.
I bet.
So it is such a diverse group on Pinterest. You can have coaches, you can have business owners, you can have people that are in all kinds of different niches. And really what I say to folks most commonly is if your content is something that people would type into a search bar to get answers to their query, then it likely lives on Pinterest. You could also go on Pinterest and type into the search bar some keywords that would be what you think your business is, right? So for myself, again, Pinterest strategist, right? So content marketing, email marketing, Pinterest, you could just put in there.
Right.
And you can see right there when you click on those keywords, you can see what content is populating and you can see if that is something that people are searching. If it's not going to populate in the search bar, then it's not a search result that has been searched.
I love that.
So think about if your audience would put it into Google and think about is your content how to focused and focused on providing value and answers. If those two things are a yes, you're likely going to do well on Pinterest.
Oh my gosh, this is so good. So essentially, friends, what you can do is that when you are thinking up of an episode topic idea and you are doing your keyword research for the podcast, you can take that research and go into Pinterest, and then there you have it. You'll be able to find your answer, just like you said. Such a good point. Oh my goodness. It is essentially saying that sometimes it's less about is my exact person scrolling Pinterest and more about can my content solve the questions people are searching for, just like you said. And that's where podcasters can win big. Oh my goodness, so good. All right, this next question is where I get super excited and very giddy because it's all about repurposing. Because I'm always telling clients and myself all day long, don't let your episodes just live on Apple, Spotify, and the podcast players. Alex, what are some of the best ways to maybe take that podcast content, like the blog, and spin it into Pinterest-friendly posts that continue to drive traffic for months or even years? Because I want to put this in here real quick, though, too. When you are doing your podcast episode, especially if you're a business owner, you should be taking that episode and bringing those people back to your offers. And then that will equate into your blog post, too. And now I will let Alex take it from here.
You said that question gets you excited, gets me excited. Because again, the sustainability of this, right?
Yes.
One piece of content that you make one time can be working for years with Pinterest. But you've got to put it into the right processes. So here are some really simple ways that you could take your podcast content and put it onto Pinterest in a way that's going to make it Pinterest friendly. So one of the first things that you were talking about is blog posts. So you can take your show notes, you can write additional content, make it into a friendly blog post that really focuses on answering your audience's question. We don't just want a blog post that is just like verbatim my life story. We want to make sure that we're answering some type of inquiry or query that our dream audience or our ideal audience would have. So we want to, when we're looking at that blog post or we're looking at those show notes, we want to look at it of what's in it for the reader. What are they going to get from it? Because that's going to make it Pinterest friendly. Making it really simple for people. People in today's day and age have attention spans that are very short.
Yes.
They are very, very quick to go on a website and off of a website. So you want to make sure if you're making something that's like a bigger episode, you could even break it up into multiple blog posts. That way, if someone's heading to your website, and they're just reading things really quickly, you can have really catchy headings and things that are like, here are my 5 takeaways. Here are my 3 things that I would recommend. Here are the steps for this. Because once the audience gets to the website, you want to make sure that you're making it really bite-sized for them. That'll also make it bite-sized for Pinterest, which will make it more friendly for Pinterest to make it go farther.
Oh, I love that.
You want to use, when we're talking about making graphics on Pinterest, you really want to focus again on your audience. So we don't just want to be like, here's my podcast.
Right.
Because what answer is that solving? What inquiry, right? As you said yourself, you're going there with a problem.
Yes.
Someone's podcast is not the answer itself.
Right.
The entity is not the answer itself. So what about that piece of content is helping your audience and making sure that that's really clear on the pin graphic itself? Because putting something like a reel of you talking on, Instagram can work because your audience is already warm.
Yes.
On Pinterest, your audience is always going to be cold because they're just putting it into a search bar. They're not following you. They're not interacting with your content regularly. So you want to make sure that you're solving a problem for them, not just showing them, hey, I run a podcast, because unfortunately that will not answer anything for them. And again, making sure that you're including a clickable link on that blog post to where they can listen to the episode. So you're going to have show notes, you're going to have blog posts, you're going to have really awesome evergreen content, but making sure we're linking, as you said, to wherever they can get the actual podcast. That way they can go and listen, and you're growing that audience and that community.
And if you do, like, I'm thinking for myself too, because like my show notes don't necessarily answer the question, which has me thinking, oh my goodness, I could essentially probably take and write a blog post about the topic of said podcast episode and create additional content for you to be able to pin that is going to specifically answer that question. I love this so much. It's essentially thinking about it like it's where the long-term strategy is going to come into play, right? Like you're essentially extending the lifespan of your podcast content or blog content, which aligns with the momentum phase in my framework. This is so good. Oh my goodness, so good. I'm taking all the notes.
I'm going to throw one more quick piece in
please.
for you too. You also don't have to make a one-for-one model.
Okay.
So you don't have to make one episode and make one blog post. You can make a blog post that touches on 5 episodes.
Ooh.
So if you're finding, like you just said, that you're like, ooh, maybe this episode isn't necessarily a full how-to, or it's not fully super valuable, that gives my audience, 10 things they can do. It's not an actionable episode. Is it something that you can give a tidbit to and other episodes could support it in the content?
Oh, that's so
right?
good.
And then if people like that tidbit, then they could pop over and listen to the episode. But you can also make it, here's, 5 takeaways and link 5 episodes or 3 episodes with your 5 tips, right? So you can also reuse content in that way too, of making additional blog posts. I like to call them sister blog posts.
I love
that are spewing from one episode that still exists out there, but it can be into multiple blog posts. So that's also a way if you're unsure of how it connects with your audience fully.
Oh my goodness. That's like the nugget of the century right there. I love that. Thank you so much for that. I have so many ideas for myself.
I'm so excited to see them all and pin them all.
Right? So good. Okay. So we've said that Pinterest is a search engine. Yes. Now, when you have a search engine, you also have to think about those keywords that we mentioned before, and those keywords will come down to SEO. I have lots of podcast episodes about SEO. I will link all those below. But I know that podcasters specifically are very interested in discoverability, as they should be, because, that's the whole point, right? And podcast SEO on its own is super powerful, like in Apple, Spotify, places like that. But how does Pinterest and the SEO in there, how does that layer on top of it? Or is it more like a complement to that?
So with Pinterest SEO, kind of 2 thoughts. I want to break them down. So 1, when you are using Pinterest, it will populate search results on Google for Pinterest as well. So when people are typing in queries to Google, Pinterest will show up as an answer.
Awesome.
So you're going to be found that way through Google as well, through using your Pinterest SEO. It's going to link to Google, which just increases your discoverability because they're not even on the Pinterest platform, but they might pop over. When it comes to keywords and SEO and things like that, you really want to focus on your blog posts and your evergreen content, the content you're linking to on your website, is making sure that that SEO is linked up with Pinterest. So when Pinterest finds that you're using in your pin descriptions similar keywords that it finds on your blog post, it's going to like that and it's going to make that pin go farther because it's like, yep, that content aligns. That's awesome. So that is going to make your pins more discoverable, which again is going to increase your discoverability. You also want to make sure that there's SEO on, again, as you said, your podcast, because then when they head over to there or when you're linking your podcast to your blog, then that's going to string itself to Pinterest as well. Because when you make a Pinterest business account, it actually claims to your website. And so it will read your website. So Pinterest is on your website every day reading your content and making sure that that connection with, the SEO keywords on the website and the SEO keywords on Pinterest are connecting. So that's really, really, really important. Another thing with SEO that is important on Pinterest is you want to be linking back to your own website. So a lot of people that I meet with who have interests with podcasts and Pinterest are linking to a Buzzsprout URL or are linking to a Spotify URL. And unfortunately, you don't own that. And so Pinterest cannot connect to that. So there is no connection of those keywords. There is no connection of that SEO. And so you want to make sure that you're always connecting back to your website. That's, when we talked about previously blogs and things, that's why you want to put them on your own website, is because that SEO juice is going to be so much stronger when Pinterest is talking to your website. So it's just going to keep layering. It's just going to make that discoverability bigger and bigger through Google, through Pinterest, when you're adding all those keywords in the correct places.
Oh my goodness, it's so true. And I know I have said this a million times, and I will say it a million more times until the end of time. Yes, stop giving your search traffic to Buzzsprout, to Libsyn, to whatever hosting platform you use, and give it to yourself. Super easy to create those blog posts on your website and to give you that extra discoverability. And even like ChatGPT, because I love this. So I had someone send me a screenshot not long ago on Instagram who said that they were on ChatGPT searching for Pinterest and podcast. And my website was one of the 5 that came up for that. And I know that that's because we work together. All the stuff is on Pinterest, right? And then you wrote a blog that, and I will link that down below too, that talked about the power of Pinterest. And so that helps, and be able to link all that together. So be able to show up that way is pretty amazing. So I love that. So good.
Yeah.
What are the common things you see? It doesn't have to be podcasters. It could also just be business owners or in general doing wrong on Pinterest and how you can fix them. And you talked about this a minute ago, but I know one thing that I had the wrong thinking was, I could just post an audiogram or a reel or something from the podcast to Pinterest. And like you were saying earlier, it's cold traffic and not warm traffic, and it doesn't really do anything for you versus if you had like a pin with your blog attached. So I would love to hear your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah. I think mistakes maybe isn't necessarily where I would think. I more think about misconceptions that people keep going on.
Yes.
People think that this is the common way to do something, and unfortunately are led down an unfortunate path at times. A lot of the things that I see so commonly are people using what they use on social media on Pinterest. And again, Pinterest and social media are not the same thing. Think more like Google, think less like Instagram. And so that's a lot of the common things that I see people with misconceptions. They're uploading, their cover art for their podcast. They're, literally just using 10-second, 15-second snippets of their podcast on Pinterest. They're just putting an episode up once. They're not providing that value. They're not answering questions. And so those are the most common things. And the way to kind of address that is we need to make sure that every pin we're making is solving an audience's problem, right? So what's the pain point that we're solving? What is the inquiry we're helping them with? What value do they get from going to this website? Making sure that we're using keywords and things like that to make sure that the content stays evergreen, and making sure that we're using keywords that our ideal audience is putting into the search bar. So I will fall down this rabbit hole for 10 seconds and we'll get back to it. But a lot of us think of our business in one specific way. So we think of our business in specific keywords, specific terms. That's not necessarily what our audience is putting into search engines. They are not necessarily using the terminology we are. So it's really important that you're using the terminology that your audience would, because it can be different and they can be searching and Googling things in different orders than maybe how we think of our business. So that's something you need to also make sure you're using properly, is what are they putting into the search bars? Repurposing episodes often, right? So as we talked about, right, we want to make sure that our content is sustainable and that we're using content to as many ways, the nth degree as possible. So making sure, if you've got an episode that does really well on Pinterest, or is one of your episodes that really, gets your community going, really is full of value, pin that one once a week, right? Pin that several times a month, right? Using different hooks, using different angles so that we're going to get a different audience each time, or a different potential audience with different keywords. So we don't just want to pin identically the same image, which I could fall down a different rabbit hole about pinning best practices.
Right.
But you want to use different hooks because the buyer types are how people are also reading things, right? So a more emotional buyer versus a more logical buyer is going to read pins very differently. And so you also need to think about that when you're making on-text graphics for Pinterest, is thinking about all the different people that would be coming into contact with your content and how to solve it. Some people love list pins, whereas other people like images. Making sure we're making a variety. And then again, making sure that we're always sending them somewhere with value. Don't send them to your homepage. There is no value there. It is confusing.
This is something that you have taught me.
Yeah, because it's a cold audience. They're like, okay, why am I here? I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I've never been here. Same as some people send people right to like a checkout page. And that's okay if you've got a very, descriptive sales page that really walks them through kind of what the value is. But if you're just having like a literal checkout page with just payment, a cold audience isn't going to translate with that. So you need to make sure that whatever your pin is sending them to is something of value, because we want to warm them up. You want your website to do the warming so that they can join your community, they could join your email list, they can buy the product, they can put in the contact form. You want to make sure that you're always connecting them to their answer and they're not going to get frustrated and leave. That's a common thing I see, is just pinning to places that get frustrated. Ooh, that's a good point. Please don't pin to social media. Social media is very, very, very confusing for people when they land there. So they're on Pinterest. They have a problem. They want an answer. Your social media is not the answer.
Good point.
You're just taking them to a post that is probably for a warm audience, probably for someone who understands you. Most of the time, you will find your click rate and things will be very quick. They will be on there for a second because they realize that's not providing the value, that's not providing them an answer. If you find on social media you have a really good post that does really well, translate that to a blog post, send them there.
Oh, so smart.
You will find people will not spend the time going from Pinterest to your social media because, again, they want answers. Your social media is not the answer.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I especially love...
Sorry, I just dumped so much.
I love this. Thank you. Please dump any and all. I love this because the type of buyer, I never thought about that in that perspective. And what's interesting to me is when I look at what pins that you're doing for me that are doing well and are doing better than others, I'm really surprised to see the B2B do well on some of these, because I'm I would have never have thought B2B folks would be on Pinterest. But it's so fascinating to see that those are doing well. And in general, it's just fascinating to see what does well and what isn't doing well. For instance, recently you gave analytics and then pins that were doing well. And I was like, ooh, I can do more content about those specific things, different twists, maybe answering a different question to see if that also will still resonate, and just to be able to bring more traffic back to my website. So that way they can continue to learn more about me, like you said, and continue to warm up. And hey, I've got my links on social. So if they want to go to social, they can go for my website.
Yeah, exactly. And that's their choice, right? We're sending them to the place of value. They can choose where they want to go in your world 100%. And I will quickly sneak in that if you're someone, and I am that someone, I 100% own that sometimes only thinks about content in one shoot. I don't, I think of a blog title in one way. Use ChatGPT. Throw your blog title in and say, give me 10 different options that would hook a different audience, would hook different buyer types, would hook, you can type into ChatGPT your ideal audience, and it will give you 10 variations of just your blog post. And that's something I love to do, because sometimes I will just see content one way. Because I think we all do. We see our content, the way we intend. And so you can also use tools like that to really help you think of different hooks and think of different angles, and B2B. Again, you would never think that would necessarily do well. That's why we do A/B testing in Pinterest, so that we know what works and what doesn't with strategy. But use ChatGPT if you feel really stuck. Just use it, bounce some ideas off of. Super helpful.
Yes, I love that so much. And I am not opposed to using AI to help with anything, because sometimes you need that second brain to help think about things, like you say, because we could get so narrow focused on our content and what we think our audience wants to see or hear or know. And sometimes it's maybe along the same vein, but it's worded differently, right? Because we know what we know, and sometimes we just got to step outside of our lane, and that can help. So I love that so much. All right, before we wrap up for today, I know that you have a new offer that's coming called Pinterest to Profit Day. We'd love to know more about that, and also where folks can connect with you.
Awesome. My Pinterest to Profit Day is essentially, I have a service called my Pinterest VIP Week, which is what introduced you and me, Leah, was a Pinterest VIP week. And that is a week-long intensive that's really all things Pinterest. And what I've heard from business owners over the past year is they're really focused on their funnels. They're really focused on kind of, how we could take a cold audience and generate them into clients and consumers. And so the Pinterest to Profit Day really hones in on that. It's a day long where we are working together for most of the day to really focus on, okay, where's your content? Where is it taking them to? How are we going to get Pinterest to be that top of funnel for you so that, people are going down? It also dives into setting up your Pinterest, teaching you the basics of Pinterest. So you get the basics, but you're also going to get a funnel focus. And so it really is an intensive day. And I'm super, super, super excited for it to be launching in October. It's something I've been thinking about for what feels like a million years. It's probably just been half a year. But I'm so excited because it's what I get most excited about in my business is helping people with their funnels and helping with the strategy. So yeah, I'm super excited. If you are interested in connecting with me, you can follow me on Instagram. I am there begrudgingly, but I am there at Simply Alex Jean. And you can also go to my website, www.simplyalexjean.com, and it's got all my services. It's got my shop where I've got a bunch of digital products for if you're a DIYer with Pinterest, but you want some help and some assistance as you get through it. Or you can also reach out to Leah and she can connect you over with me as well.
Yes. And I'll put all your stuff down in the episode description and show notes too. But yes, I will say anytime that I have gotten on a call with you for the strategy or anything with Pinterest, my mind has always been blown because you always help me think about things in a different perspective. Because again, we get so narrow focus about what we think people want or need or etc. And then you posing questions or suggesting things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And people are visiting, people are coming, people are clicking and reading. And that is what I want, right? More awareness, bringing in those leads, talking with folks, answering questions. It's so, so good. So the key is go talk to Alex.
I am so happy to talk to anybody who wants to talk Pinterest. I love it, thrive off of it. If you click my link in bio, you can book a call and we can chat.
Yes, please go do it. So Alex, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. I know that my listeners are going to walk away seeing Pinterest in a whole new light like I did when I first met you. And for everyone tuning in, if you've been wondering how to stretch your podcast content farther, this episode should be your sign. Don't let your episodes disappear after you hit publish. Turn them into pins that drive traffic and listeners long after. And hey, if you want help making your podcast more visible, I talk about this every week in my newsletter. You'll find the link down below. And until next time, keep podcasting with purpose, keep repurposing strategically, and keep it seamless. And I'll see you next week.